minutos, podemos aprovechar y echarle un vistacete al Spectrum y a la nota del parche, ¿no? Tal de parche que salió ayer. Bueno, salió de madrugada, después de que yo cerrara el directo, unas horas después. Seguimos en Wii 2. Pulido de economía. Incrementado el rango completo del beneficio de la minería. Añadidos más localizaciones para vender Hanalai. Y un lugar para comprar hierro. Balanceo de los contratos de chatarra. Hacer los contratos ilegales disponibles en cualquier lugar en Stanton. Incrementado el tiempo de vida de la misión de 5 a 15 minutos. Más instancias de misión generadas. Retrabajado lo que es la zona de armisticio para permitir usar el Tractor Beam en los hangares. Pase de pulido del Tractor Beam. Interesante. Por cierto, al final el bug que no me aparecía en algunas naves ni comprando cosas, probando por hacer algo me metí a personalizarla 325A y así me aparecieron. ¿Y no será que sea por un ciclo de cuestión de tiempo, el Exauror? Es que claro, al final, tío, sabes, a veces hacemos cosas y tal, y lo único que tiene que pasar es tiempo. Y puede ser que eso sea solución, ¿vale? Pero en ocasiones, a veces simplemente es una cuestión de tiempo. Y asociamos echarle sal al disco duro con que hemos encontrado la pepita de oro, ¿sabes? A eso me refiero. Buenas, Shusho. A ver. Buenas, Hornari, y buenas, Trooper. Bueno, 5 minutillos y con la calma, ¿no?
This is an audio test. This is the sound of my voice. Hey, Dan Truffin, what does your voice sound like?
This is the sound of my voice.
Do you have like a favorite song you can sing for us, Dan?
Oh no, don't make me sing. Please don't make me sing.
Okay. I feel like Dan's a little hot there. Torsten, what does your voice sound like?
This is the sound of my voice.
Do you have a favorite song you want to sing?
Certainly not.
I always know when I'm talking to the Frankfurt studio. That's good. Music is fine, but the voice was distorted. I don't know what that is. All right, so we're okay. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes and 47 seconds, everybody. See you then.
Qué bueno es el puto Discolando, tío. O sea, es increíble. A ver. Son detalles de una tontería, como decir, nos vemos en 2 minutos 47 segundos y que su frase coincida con los 47 segundos de la pantalla. No, o sea, puede pasar desapercibido, pero a mí no me lo parece. O sea, a mí no me pasa desapercibido. Eso es mimar su curro. Desde luego. Son chorraditas, pero que no son chorradas. Que no es fácil de hacer eso, yo creo, tampoco. Detallitos, chavales, detallitos. Buenas locos, que no se te he saludado. Pero por si acaso. Hay mucho cambio de la 3.18 a la 3.19, sí. Es un gran añadido el tema de sacar los objetos con el rayo tractor. Parece una tontería, pero no lo es. Y la minería obviamente es una animalada. Es súper divertida.
I was spray painting this week, and there's just gray spray paint. Like, how do you get spray paint off your hands?
Water.
No, because that would have worked. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Star Citizen Live, mining and salvage and tractor beams. Oh my. I'm your host, creative content lead, Jared Huckabee. I almost stumbled on my own title there again. And if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, that's where we take about an hour out of the end of our week and we invite our devs onto the show to chat their work on Star Citizen, sometimes their history, getting into the industry. Sometimes it's just a get to know you thing. Sometimes we do a game dev thing where you see how they make stuff, and sometimes we answer your community questions.
Está presentando lo que es el Star Citizen Live, como siempre. Pero estoy fijándome en la camisa que tiene, la de Drake, que no se ve tan mal, la camisa de Drake Interplanetary.
Got the King's coronation on my brain here. So the Kings of EU, PU, Dan Truffin and Torsten Lyman. Dan, Torsten, how you doing?
I'm fine.
Hey, doing good.
You
All
know,
good.
I said it, we joked, like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm talking to Frankfurt folks. How you doing? Fine. Fine. No, it's great. Dan, Torsten, because every show is somebody's first show, let's take a few moments to introduce yourselves, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Hi, I'm Dan Truffin. I'm the assistant design director for PU Content, and I oversee a lot of the new work that's being done for Pyro, but not only the content side, I also oversee the UPU team, which Thorsten.
Está explicando lo que hace Dan. Básicamente este señor es el puto amo. O sea, ya os lo digo. O sea, ha participado en el tema de la administración de recursos, el tema de la mecánica de minería, el tema de la chatarra. O sea, el tipo pilota.
So as an expansion on that, your teams are responsible for the gameplay features, the
Claro, ellos son efectivamente los responsables de las gameplay features, las características de gameplay. Hay que recordar que ellos hacen lo que son las características que podemos, o sea, las características de las mecánicas, y luego el resto de equipos hacen misiones y hacen contenido de gameplay basado en las tecnologías que esta gente desarrolla, ¿no?
you and your team create and provide.
Yeah, basically, we create these sandbox systems that then get, utilized in those defined gameplay scenarios that are then like missions or any other content setup, yes.
So just to beat that... Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, the flow kind of goes where the feature teams create a feature and they try to open up a few hooks for the mission guys, and then the mission guys come back and go, hey, could we also get some extra functionality here? And they try to build the mission feature.
Claro, efectivamente, dice, ellos lo que hacen es crear una demo, ¿vale? Crear una demo para que el resto de equipos puedan trabajar. Luego los chavales de misiones de Mission Feature Team dice, y podemos tener también esta característica para hacer esto. Y luego pues hay equipos de contenido que en base a ese diseño de misiones también implementan más misiones, etcétera, con las cosas que van desarrollando. Y al final es una comunicación interna entre los equipos, pidiéndole características y tecnologías y cosas que se puedan hacer en el juego a este grupo de desarrollo.
Yeah, sandbox. Do kids play in sandboxes anymore? Like, do they have sandboxes at parks anymore, or are we just really old?
They do. I have a neighbor kid that does just that all day in screen.
So we're going to talk over a couple things that the EU PU team has worked on. Some that you've been iterating on for quite some time. Others that are relatively new, like Salvage. I want to start with mining. Now, way back when, we did what we thought was going to be our last ISC piece on mining for a while. Like, mining was set, it's done. We're really happy where it was. And then about a year later, we're like, nope, we're doing more updates that are coming in the upcoming Alpha 319, which is currently in wave 1 or 2 PTU testing right now. What pulled us back into mining when we thought we were out for a while?
One of the main aspects was actually the community feedback that we received. And that was pointing out that we were lacking some content, especially for bigger groups, and mining in our multi-crew mining ship wasn't fun anymore, and there wasn't a real challenge, even though that we thought back then.
Dice que pensamos que habíamos dejado la minería, que estábamos contentos con ello, pero ¿qué es lo que nos ha vuelto a la minería? ¿Por qué este empuje a la minería ahora? Y dice, ha sido básicamente por feedback de la comunidad, por escuchar a la comunidad que decían que había un vacío de contenido, una falta de contenido a la hora de jugar grupos grandes, y que la mole no era divertida y que los jugadores necesitaban un reto.
The actual gameplay or the main gameplay that you're seeing, but more on the balancing side. So basically the mining that you will find now in 319 it's not comparable to the mining that you knew from 318 and before.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of the feedback I'm already seeing from on streams and on YouTube and in Spectrum is that people are getting in there, and besides a bunch of the performance improvements that that improve the overall 319 experience from what's currently on 318 live servers. There are a lot more opportunities with mining, more ways to customize your mineable experience. Some of that has to do with the tractor beam stuff that we'll get into in a little bit. But because we haven't talked about what specifically is in 319 right now, can you give us a rundown of the mining improvements? I know I realize I'm halfway through the question, and I'm like, I should have really told them to have the Confluence page up and running, so he doesn't have to pull all this stuff out of his head. But sum it up for us. What does change in 319 for mining?
Okay, the short version is everything. But so I will probably forget some things because the list is actually quite bigger than I was imagining. Because I wrote even the summary for our life experience team, what actually changed, and that list got bigger than I expected, to be honest. But yeah, let's start with the resources. So I think that is the biggest change, because it not only affects the mining itself, but it also has an impact on trading. Because right now resources have distinct locations in Stanton. That means we defined now 7 standard materials that have 7 different locations, or there can be in the combination of those in those locations. And those standard materials or those standard resources you only find in those particular locations. For example, the standard is copper and iron. So those you will only find in dedicated locations throughout Stanton. And in addition to that, we introduced rarity to some resources. And those are, we have common one, we have uncommon one, and we have one rare one, which is Quantanium. So those are now more sparse in its general appearance. And so that is the thing that you will notice at first sight. Another thing that is more hidden behind is that each resource now has its distinct density. So that means that even though the rocks look very similar in size in comparison to before, they will have now drastically different masses. So heavier elements will have a huge impact on the mass of the rock. And that actually helped us a bit, because that made certain materials now more viable for bigger ships or bigger lasers, while others are now better suited for...
Es muy interesante lo que está comentando. La minería dice que hay como 7 materiales estándar que están repartidos por Stanton, que tienen ubicaciones específicas o mixtas y solo se pueden encontrar en esos lugares. Aparte de lo que es... han incluido pues materiales comunes, no comunes y raros, siendo raro que ahora mismo es el Quantanium. Y una cosa que está diciendo interesante es que ahora mismo han añadido lo que es la densidad. Tiene diferentes densidades, tiene diferente masa, lo que influye en la masa de lo que es la piedra, y hay ciertos materiales que son más interesantes de minar por láseres más potentes, es decir, por la mole en lugar de por la prospector, ¿no? Estas piedras que llamamos imposible, y que parece que los materiales, en la masa del material, influye a la hora de las propiedades de la piedra, si vamos a ser capaces de mirarlas o no, ¿no?
We have a better overview of what resources are where, but for players it is I think more of a... I think it's more fun to actually look for certain materials than it was before. Also,
they'll have to discover.
They have to discover
a completely new. It's a completely new distribution, and it might be annoying or exciting depending on everyone's perspective on life. One thing I wanted to add is one thing that we definitely add, and I hope this helps, is a lot of improvements on the mining UI and UX.
Yes.
So there's a lot of small little things that just added together, they just make it more user friendly. They make it easier for a beginner to understand it.
Claro, el tema de la minería también ha cambiado mucho la interfaz. Comenta que ahora es mucho más fácil de entender y que a la hora de qué debemos hacer para minar, pues es algo que vamos a tener que descubrir, pero es una distribución totalmente nueva, totalmente diferente, que a algún tipo de jugador puede que le frustre y a otros puede que les agrade, depende del entendimiento que cada uno tenga de la vida.
More targeted. Yeah, but that all for the resources. Dan already talked about the UI changes, so actually a shout out to a person that is like ruling all our UI work in our team, that is Bastien. So Bastien did an amazing job with all the UI work that
Están dando un elogio a Bastián, que es el encargado de haber hecho toda la interfaz de minería.
maybe, as Dan stated, it's now more user friendly. So we have clear indicators for what you actually have equipped. We now have a dedicated helper that tells you if you should actually try out the rock that you are facing, or you should call in a friend, because it says impossible, and impossible means impossible for your current setup. So you definitely will need some help there. And one more thing that I forgot. It's actually a huge list. Like, one more thing I forgot is we now have even different scaling for the resources. So beforehand we had very limited scaling for the size of the rocks you find on those planets. So now you even, if you're lucky, you even find like those little nuggets that you don't even have to break. You can just scoop them up, and like, so even if you were unlucky and didn't have the matching mining heads equipped, you at least got away with something, and that directly leads to the next big update, which is the mining heads. So what we did there is, we basically started from scratch. So we mapped out all the resources and defined their own individual parameter, meaning like each resource has their own way of affecting the resistance, then their own way of affecting the optimal window or the instability, and all those parameters that you know.
Claro, esto es interesante. Dice que han empezado desde cero. Ahora podemos encontrar rocas. En cuanto a la escalabilidad de las rocas, es mucho más variable. Incluso nos podemos encontrar pedazos que ni siquiera tenemos que partir, que podemos recoger en el acto. Aparte de esto, también hay, pues, cada material tiene sus propios, afecta de manera a la resistencia, las propiedades de la roca. Cada material tiene sus efectos, ¿no? Incluso, pues, lo que es la ventana disponible para poder minar. O sea, que al final es una, de alguna manera nos está diciendo que a la hora de utilizar los componentes de minería, efectivamente, pues según los componentes de minería que estemos haciendo, pues igual interesa una cabeza u otra, ¿no?
So yeah, it will be like more challenging for players with certain laser combinations to crack open certain type of rocks.
Aparte de que ahora dice que, bueno, que una de las cosas que tiene la interfaz es que efectivamente te muestra si es imposible la piedra, definitivamente es imposible con el equipo que llevas y necesitas pedir ayuda.
Hi, Shidius. That's really your name in Twitch. Shidius was the first person to ask if this show was live. No, it's not. It's pre-taped, and I just knew you were going to ask. I can also see through the screen into your room, and it's time to throw away all those caffeine-free Diet Coke cans. Okay.
We have to sit next time with a newspaper here and prove that.
I don't know. There's always somebody every show. So with mining, before we move on to stuff, let's talk. So that's what we're doing for 319. A little bit about what we're doing for 319. Obviously not a comprehensive list, because I pulled the question out without preparing you, and you didn't have the comprehensive list. That's on me. Can you give us a little bit about where we want to go with mining going forward after 319? Is this now it for a while, or is there something else in the back of our head we already know we want to do as our next steps?
So there are definitely some next steps that are already planned out. Some that I don't want to talk about yet, but others that we can definitely talk about, which is for crafting and refining. Like this, the distribution of the resources helps us drastically to already plan out all the next steps that will, as Dan so nicely always mentions, it's like we really want to close out the loop, right? So you start at mining, you pick up the resources, may it be mining, may it be salvage, then you bring it to your refinery, you refine it to the processed goods, and once you have it in the processed goods, you bring it to your crafting facility, crafting ship, crafting whatever, and then you create the requested items out of them, and then
Vale, realmente queremos cerrar el ciclo completo. ¿Cuáles son los siguientes pasos de la minería? Dice, queremos que pilles la minería, que estáis minando, que estéis haciendo salvage, que vayáis a la refinería, inclusive el salvage, que podáis obtener vuestros productos y que podáis ir a craftear a vuestro crafting whatever, lo que sea, crafting ship, nave de fabricar cosas,
So it's an active development. But no, it will not only be so. But talking about mining in particular, no, that's not the end of it. And the reason is because there are still some ships missing that were announced,
Right.
and they should have their own treatment of how you play mining with those.
Claro, dice, la minería de luego no está acabada porque hay naves que quedan por salir y que tendrán su propia manera de enfrentarse a la minería.
As we said, eventually it all leads to crafting and making your own items out of nothing. You start out of nothing with a ship and you get this. But there's a few very interesting things along the way. One of the closest things right now are going to be those mining sacks. We need to be able to eject, collect, put into a refinery, process all that ore, turn into refined materials, take that to a refining, a manufacturing ship, or sell it, or whatever you want to do. So the main thing is like we're seeing this as a mining operation. We're seeing this as a mining, refining, hauling, production, crafting,
Right.
manufacturing operation that you can run. You can run it with 2-3 people, or you can run it on a full scale where you have whatever 20 prospectors, 5 refinery ships, 3 haulers, escort for all of them. It's all that thing. Once that ecosystem starts going, you're going to see some amazing operations in Star Citizen.
Claro, dice que una de las cosas que tiene que suceder es que seamos capaces de pillar los sacos de los prospectos, los sacos de la minería, poder recolectarlos, poder vaciarlos, poder refinarlos, poder llevarlos a otra vez, nuevamente ha dicho, entregar esos materiales a una nave que fabrique cosas, fabricar un montón de cosas, desde luego va a ser un gran cambio. El hecho de que vamos a ver realmente grandes cosas, o sea, grandes operaciones en el Star Citizen, desde algo tan pequeño de 2-3 personas como algo enorme, desde escoltas, cargueros, naves fabricando cosas, refineras, todo. O sea,
your machine guns or whatever, that's a different, so it all feeds into this thing where you can produce your own items and create hopefully a very flourishing economy where people trade whatever they produce today with whatever someone else produced.
Claro, además esperan que el poder crear todo tipo de objetos, esperan que sea que haga que sea una economía floreciente, que haya cantidad de tradeo en el verso, ¿no?
No,
Yep.
we're talking about it for so long, it's hard to. How's that going? How's the response to that been? Are you happy with it? Are you content with it? Or do you see nothing but the problems and where you want to go next? I invite you to be very candid in this. Tell me how you're seeing Salvage right now after its release. Come on, Dan.
Oh, should I do it? I thought I'd leave this one to Torsten.
Okay.
This is his baby. He started this. He brought it to completion. I don't want to talk about it. From mining, I have a lot of things to say because I started it, and then Torsten is bringing it to completion. But for this one, I'd rather let Torsten take it.
So the question was where we are at with it and how happy we are, and I'm really happy with what we have, and especially with the short time that we actually got to work on that. Like, yeah, I know you all have been waiting for it for quite some time, but actually the time frame it was thrown at us was quite short. So I'm really happy with what we pulled out, or what we achieved in that time frame. And I think I mentioned it already at some point, that what I like the most about the Salvage that was introduced with 3.18, so the hull scraping, is that it is such a nice contrast to all the other gameplay loops that we have. Right, we have a very action-based combat, or we have an action-based combat. We have mining that is very now even more than before, but it is like challenging in terms of itemization planning and preparation and stuff like that. While hull scraping right now is you jump into your vulture or into your reclaimer, you drive past some debris pieces, and you can just put on some music and relax and just scrape off their hull. And I think that is this. Like, I think good games are made out of those, like a variety of systems that deliver.
Ahora está comentando, dice, ¿estás contento con el estado actual de la chatarra o tal? Y dice, sí, estamos contentos con el estado actual de la chatarra, sobre todo especialmente por el poco tiempo que hemos tenido para poder realizar la tarea. Sé que algunos de vosotros habéis estado esperando durante algún tiempo, pero nos han asignado muy poco tiempo para poder sacar adelante, y lo que hemos conseguido en tan poco tiempo estoy contento, y sobre todo el hecho de poder tener una mecánica diferente al resto de gameplay loops del juego, donde tenemos el gameplay basado en acción, o tenemos la jugabilidad de la minería, que especialmente ahora pues también es un reto, y luego tenemos la parte de la chatarra que es como más de relax, más de chill.
To come.
You touch on something. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, just wanted to fill in on this. It's kind of funny because when we started working on this, there was a bit of a clash of ideas, which always happens with anything you're designing. Thorsten was always trying to deliver this more chilled experience, just you and your ship in the middle of nowhere, just hull scraping whatever you found. And I was like, no, it needs to be challenging. It needs to explode if you touch a wire or something like this. And we're like, no, let's do it this way. And indeed, you need to have the variety. If everything explodes the second.
Claro, dice mi compañero, ¿no? Yo le decía, tenemos que hacer algo que sea reto, tenemos que hacer algo tal. No, vamos a hacerlo calmado, vamos a hacerlo por ruta calmada. Y dice, tiene que haber variedad en el juego, tiene que haber actividades que sean de riesgo, tiene que haber actividades que sean de chill, tiene que haber actividades que sean de combate, tiene que haber variedad, ¿no?
Said is like the team pulled off an amazing feature. There were a lot of dependencies on other team, and it came at a time when a lot of heavy tech was coming, and it kind of influenced the delivery, and they did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Actually, on that, before it's forgotten, because without the weapon feature team that did the pre-phase work, and the VFX team that pulled out like the amazing damage map work that was required for that, we would be sitting here and talking about this. So, like, also like huge kudos to the weapon feature team and to the VFX team that really helped us achieve what we have now.
Yeah, if for backers who are used to mining and exploding and dying, you can send your letters to Dan Treppen, care of Cloud Imperium Games. I don't know the new address. I used to know the old address, and I realized that you have the new address there. I don't know it. Torsten, I want to touch on something that you touched on. There's a misconception that applies to everything that you touched on, that from the moment we say, oh, this is something we want to do, that it must be in active development, that all things are in active development at the same time. Because we've been talking about salvaging for years and years and years. That's not the same as you have had the resources available to you, the schedule available to you, and you and your people to actually work on it, which, like you said, it was a relatively short window for this first iteration there. And I want to mention that phenomenon can be applied to every single aspect of Star Citizen. It's when you saw your first jump points at CitizenCon 2019. Jump points have not been in continuous development for the last 4 years. The first time you saw the interior of the Hull C, which has recently been added to the 320 outlook, that has not been in continuous development for the last several years and stuff. So I want to encourage people to utilize the resources, the public roadmap, which is overseen by,
Claro, está comentando que a la hora de poder trabajar, a la hora de las características que están haciendo, o las cosas que está trabajando, que la Hulce no se ha estado trabajando desde hace 1000 años. No todas las cosas están en desarrollo activo, ¿no? Simplemente pues tienen que coincidir el calendario y las oportunidades para poder desarrollar cosas en el juego, que es lo que ha pasado con la chatarra, pues que ahora tenían esa oportunidad y han tenido una ventana corta de tiempo.
That go up on the barberspaceindustries.com website is another fantastic way to keep informed of the things that are in active development. So if there's a lot of we see a lot of comments, and I'm going to get a little personal here, so bear with me, Dan and Torsten. When folks on the YouTube or the Reddit or Spectrum, comment on Inside Star Citizen, for instance, like why are they not talking about this or whatnot? The answer is almost always it's not in active development right now, or if it is in active development, it's not at a point where it's changed enough from the last time you've seen it in order to show it to you again.
Claro, dice que a menudo ve comentarios en YouTube o en Reddit, donde sea, ¿no? Acerca de los Inside Star Citizen, de por qué no enseñan tal cosa o tal, y bueno, pues porque no está en desarrollo activo, o porque si está en desarrollo activo todavía no tiene el suficiente cambio desde la última vez que lo han enseñado como para dedicarle un show, ¿no?
Person's on vacation or person's over here and they're not available or whatnot. So there's always many factors, but I encourage you to utilize the development tracker aspect of the public roadmap, not just the release view, and those monthly reports. They're going to be your best tool to know what is currently in active development. And then ISC kind of comes at the end of all that, because you definitely want to show stuff. We have a show where we just talk. That's this one. But ISC, we want to make sure those things are far enough along to show whenever possible. So Salvage, where do we want to go with this? We know munching is in our future. Talk to me about where we want to take munching. What's next for hull scraping? What can you tell us, Thorsten?
So hull scraping for now is, I want to say on a rest, but that's not entirely true, because it will get touched while we are working right now on the munching aspect. So some improvements will come with our munching release that will also affect the hull scraping part of it. But yeah, so the next step for Salvage was what was released right now in 3.19, which is the item stripping. So that is already a huge step forward for the Salvage gameplay loop. And I think it was even one of the most requested, most waited for, however you want to phrase it. But like I personally am really happy about it, because it ties in really nicely with all the features that we internally work on. So the synergy is really nice with like even with refueling in the end, because you can switch out your fuel pods. There are still things that we need to do there, right? So it was already called out in several points on Spectrum or in our community videos or in other channels, that there are still a lot of things that we need to do to make it work perfectly. We are aware, and we are working on that. But yeah, then the next big step, and I think that will be the most fun, and I'm personally looking forward the most to that, is actually the munching. So yeah.
¿Cuáles son los siguientes pasos para la minería? Para el Salvage. Y el siguiente paso lo tenemos ya en la 3.19, que sería la recuperación de componentes, que podemos ahora, lo hemos estado probando, ¿no? Dice que es algo que se lleva esperando durante mucho tiempo y tal. El siguiente paso, pues, será el munching, el machaque, el deshacer lo que es la estructura, ¿no? A nivel estructural, las naves.
To clean up, then to gamify it, and then like have it rewarding in the sense of, you destroy the ships. It's fun to destroy those ships or those debris pieces, and then you convert them into resources, and then you are either able to sell those for like just profit, or you use the resources you gather for crafting, then coming in the very far future.
So
this is a Sorry, one thing. This is an important. It's not a shift in mentality. It's a good mentality that we've always had, but I think it shows, especially with PES. Yes, we filled up the universe with a lot of wrecks and a lot of junk. But what we're doing right now, we're starting to introduce the gameplay that's going to clean it up. And munching is just one of things. We know there's a big mess happening on the space stations, on the landing zones. So we will be introducing systems that also will tackle that. But we don't want to just just clean it up faster, just remove it and destroy basically PES. What we're going to do is involve the player into it.
You don't want to
So if
hide
a
the
location
problem.
needs cleaning, then the players will have a chance to do that and gain some rewards from that.
So you'd say you're both are really looking forward to munching.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Claro, dice que con respecto al machaque están hablando de una de las cosas que quieren hacer, que es cuando se generan escombros y demás en las estaciones o tal, quieren hacer que los jugadores pues puedan recibir una recompensa por poder liquidar esos escombros, ¿no? Y que una de las cosas que quieren hacer pues es tienen ganas de tener el munching, ¿no?
Pardon?
Me camera 2. I'm sorry. All right. You're watching the last show of Disco Orlando, only at twitch.tv/Star Citizen. Let's move on to tractor beams. Tractor beams are getting
Tengo que mirar eso bien
a
luego
lot
porque...
of fun stuff in 319. Give us the quick rundown for folks who may not have seen last season's ISC on it, Torsten.
You can now attach and detach any ship items and some of the internal components with your tractor beam of choice.
And has that been, internally, has that been a smooth addition to the game? Or how's that been going?
Not at all, especially with like, so there are several issues that we were facing, right? So I think the biggest one is actually how do we get items comfortably out of the inventory and then place them on your ships, right? So your station inventory, how do you get the items out of there and then have them accessible? So that was, and there we had a lot of painful sessions, like when I was talking about, I think in our last ISC that, yeah, we had the Cutlass Black prepared with all the mining heads in there. Yeah, we can do that. We can cheat. We can spawn items. We don't have to do the annoying part of actually equipping one of your ships and then like pulling the items off and then So this is something that we uncovered, but I think that the most drastic one is which I'm me as a player, I'm really like not so happy about this decision, but me as sitting here with my CIG hat on, I think that's the only decision we could come.
Estaba preguntando, la transición de, bueno, el trabajo de haber sacado lo que es de poder sacar los componentes con radiotractor y demás, ha sido algo suave, o sea, ha sido algo fluido a nivel interno, tal, y dices, no, para nada, hemos tenido muchos problemas, muchos dilemas, el tema para poder sacar los objetos del interior de las naves por cuestiones de espacio y demás, y quedan todavía cosas por hacer.
That also adds to, like, even though you couldn't even carry out the big weapons through the elevator out, right? So you didn't even have a benefit of it. It was just like bringing havoc to the world and making everyone else's lives miserable. So we had to jump in and come up with this temporary solution and deactivate the tractor beam in the green zones. But yesterday we activated at least again in the hangars. So there was so shout out to Yaro who just did jump in and did a quick fix for that. So
No, it was I think people were going into the showroom and pulling the components out of the display ships. Is that what I saw?
Yeah. Not even that. Like it's like even from the display stands, shops weren't secure anymore. Like you could tear apart every shop and every item in every shop, and also because in Fleet Week we always allow you to enter those.
Claro, parece ser que con el tema del rayo tractor que tuvieron que hacer un arreglo rápido porque con el rayo tractor activado en zonas de armisticio se podían sacar los componentes de las tiendas, llevártelos y te podías llevar los componentes de las naves, de los salones del Invictus también.
Leaving one another and just basically tearing your ship apart even though you don't want it. So in the Fleet Week you could sit in the pilot seat, unlock the items, and then like basically strip every item away, and then have another person that come in and then like why does the ship look so empty? So yeah,
it's not as bad as our first in IAE where somebody actually started a ship and flew it through the convention center. I was like, oh, you can actually fully power these on and fly them. Okay, that's a problem.
This is what we always do. We add new things into a very complex environment and set of systems, and there will be some points of failure. And then we look at those, we try to fix them. With the tractor beams kind of being usable in green zones, there will have to be some updates to the law of the place.
Yep.
That will need to support some things. As Torsten said, the shops will need some updating. This is what always happens.
Claro, el tema de realmente poder llevarte los componentes de la tienda tendrá que haber actualizaciones a las leyes del lugar, ¿no? Obviamente yo creo que sí que se debería poder, pues como la idea que tienen, que se pueda hacer eso, pero obviamente si haces eso pues se considere que te vengan a partir la cara la seguridad o algo, ¿no?
Everything to function as
hand scripting here.
Exactly. All as functionally and diegetically within the universe as possible, so that those mysterious interactions are what generate, emergent gameplay, but they also generate a lot of okay, we're going to need something to address that.
Claro, efectivamente está diciendo que a la hora de desarrollar cosas en los sistemas tan complejos que tiene Star Citizen, pues hay gameplay emergente, ¿no? Que surge de hacer troleada, pero que dice, tenemos que... O sea, de gameplay emergente a veces y tal, pero otras cosas dice, vamos a tener que mirar esto porque se nos va de las manos, ¿no?
From Spectrum. So stay tuned, we'll be back in a minute. I'm going to have to check my email.
Efectivamente. No sé si os habéis escuchado algo, pero este río no lo he visto todavía. Es un río nuevo de Microtech. De hecho, ese outpost todavía no lo he visto y tiene un pequeño muelle que igual pues en el futuro pues se puede hacer pesca desde ahí. No tiene buena pinta.
Yes, but I mean, it is stripping and munching. I didn't make anything up. That's what they're working on. Okay. Love you too, Chris. Bye. All right, so we're back. And we're still here with Dan Truffin and Torsten Lyman talking about mining and salvage and tractors. Oh my.
Luego os cuento lo que ha pasado ahí.
Thread earlier in the week, when I say earlier, I think it was like actually yesterday, up in Spectrum to collect questions. So we're going to pull some of the questions from the thread, starting with no stranger to Star Citizen Live, Salty Mike, who wrote, what are the plans on making the item port flow much simpler than the current travel to Armistice and remove items and repeat for mining. What are the plans on making the item flow much simpler than the current travel to Armistice and remove items and repeat for mining? This is a key part of the new experience, and it is severely hindered by the current item and inventory system.
So we cannot fix it for all the items right now, but so we already have at least, so today we got it internally working that you can move at least the sub items for the mining heads more comfortably out of your station inventory onto the ground, pick them up, carry them, and bring them over to your ship. But there are some issues that we still have to solve. So, and once we get that sorted, we will probably push it out. But for the other items, especially for the bigger ones, it's more complicated because...
Claro, los objetos pequeños, el poder, como los subcomponentes de minería, el poder agarrarlos con la mano es algo que tienen que resolver y cuando lo tengan resuelto lo pondrán, que es algo que les falta. Y el tema, pues por ejemplo, de los componentes más grandes es algo más complicado que tendrán que resolver por otro lado.
And you just drop it in GrimHex, you could basically block away all the ASOP terminals and then no one would be able to access them because tractor beams won't work, you cannot push them around. And so this is definitely not something that we can do with all the issues that we pointed out with the tractor beam being activated in the green zones. So sadly, we cannot do that. But also we want to do it right, which means that we are dependent on the freight elevators because the freight elevator is basically the proper connection between your virtual inventories and your real space, right? Because
Claro, efectivamente es lo que estábamos hablando el otro día, que al final para poder llevar componentes más grandes o que se fisicalice componentes más grandes en el suelo cuando los compremos y demás, al final necesitaremos los freighters elevators, los montacargas, para que sea, pues, porque eso es la forma de
be able to move cargo inside the ship, considering the tractor beam is located outside of the ship and away from the cargo hold.
Yeah, we are aware of those. So we are working on also the vehicle side of the tractor beams, and those need to be updated. Simple as that.
Claro, el tema de cómo haremos para poder mover la carga en una Caterpillar con los rayos tractores teniendo en cuenta que están fuera, y dice que vamos a actualizar ese tipo de mecánica de los rayos tractores de las naves.
Need to look into the tractor beam setup more thoroughly than just for the newer ships. So yes, there might be some updates on the actual item position for those to work actually properly with the system.
Right, because the tractor beam...
Claro, habrá una recolocación. Habrá una recolocación de la posición de los rayos tractores, pero no van a hacer curvas ni nada, no es la idea.
Come online and we have to rethink a few things. If people remember, the prospector used to have this laser that was pointing downwards.
Right.
We just had to adjust based on the system, and eventually it all works out.
Things are built with the best information we have at the time. And
exactly.
So, let's see. Knievel. There we go. Will we be able to buy empty mining bags and also drop them from inventory to easily attach and trade? The question about dropping items also applies to mining lasers, mining components, and other similar objects. There were a lot of questions in the thread about mining bags.
So dropping, no, but using the freight elevator to pull them out and then using them also.
Los componentes de minería como las cabezas, los sacos y tal, seremos capaces de dropearlos, o sea, de soltarlos del inventario. Dice que no, que contesté los montacargas que sí, eso es otra cosa, que estarán en los montacargas, ahí sí podremos hacer ese tipo de cosas.
Freight elevator to pull out those entities into the real world.
Gotcha. So when he's saying drop them from inventory, you don't want to pull them out of imaginary
thin air, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They will definitely drop from the ship. So once you fill them in your prospector, you'll be able to drop them, and a refinery with a tractor beam will just pick them up, take them, empty them, refine them, drop the empty one, you pick it up and put it in your prospector, so on.
But that should already work, right? So you can already detach the mining sacks from the prospector and the mole. You can already put them on the cargo grid. Sadly, so this is also something that we are actively working on, is making them detectable by the commodity stores so that you can sell it, but also for the refinery so that you place them on someone else's ship and then fly to a refinery, and that person then is able to start the refining process for the prospector owner. So
Right.
that is also important to us, that it's not only, basically it's all tying in with the group gameplay, that members of your group can actually do the same actions as you would, as the owner, to allow that.
And then there's some ownership stuff with the mining bags, like, you know, if I'm
Se confirma de forma definitiva que de momento no se van a poder vender los sacos de la Prospector. Es decir, si alguien adquiere los
mining bag, because it's theirs now. How is that working? How should that work?
So it should work that every person that you allow to handle the content should be able to handle that content. And yeah, this is something that we are working on, because what we also don't want is that if you're doing group trade routes and you have to split like the content of your ship or whatever, that it doesn't have one dedicated owner, but it can have multiple owners that are valid there.
Gotcha. So a way to...
Claro, están hablando de varias cosas. Están hablando del tema de la carga, de que se puedan asignar varios propietarios a la carga para poder trabajar con ella. Y bueno, pues que no pase lo que es ahora, que tienes que ir a venderlo. Si se lo das a un tercero, pues tiene, aunque esté en parte y tal, no puedes venderlo como si se tratara de carga normal, tienes que venderlo como carga robada. Eso es algo en lo que están trabajando ahora para poder dar esos permisos.
The crime stat for intercepting a saddlebag, you know, obviously they might have trouble selling it at a more reputable vendor, but as new locations come online that are less legally friendly, there might be other opportunities for them to sell their misbegotten goods.
Yeah, of course, that is always the plan.
Okay.
Para personas que, o sea, para los piratas, pues habrá eventualmente más ubicaciones para poder vender los productos robados que se introducirán al juego. Supongo que será cuando llegue Pyro y demás. Aparte de eso, estaba comentando de que efectivamente no se puede vender ahora mismo la carga de... O sea, los sacos de minerales no se pueden vender desde una nave de carga, y es algo en lo que están trabajando para que se pueda hacer en el futuro, ¿no? Pero ahora mismo no se puede.
Basically be a blocker to performing munching gameplay, or will you just get less RMC if you don't strip the hull first?
Yeah, on this one you will completely lose out on the RMC, because like, yeah, well, you will at least lose some bits, right? If you start the munching process and that will break apart your ship, there will be like some hull material will get lost. So this is definitely some material loss that you will have there.
I'm sorry. Do we expect the munching to provide RMC, or would it be like a different resource?
Yeah, well, so in our first iteration, the munching will not provide RMC, but for later, once we have actually, because the explanation would take a bit longer, because what we actually need to have the proper materials is the physicalized materials, that like each component the ship made of is aware of which material it is made of, right? So if you break apart a ship, that the piece exactly knows what it is made of, and then you munch it, and then you actually get the exact components what it was made of. This is something that is more complicated to do than what we are currently working on. Currently, we will be working on something that is more like it converts it to a dedicated or defined mix of materials. So we don't know yet what the actual part is made of, but that will then come once the physicalized materials will come.
Está comentando el tema de a la hora de hacer el munching, vamos a obtener el mismo material RMC o vamos a obtener que cuando hacemos el hull scrapping dice no, vamos a tener otro tipo de composición diferente, que va a ser una composición apañada, va a ser un apaño hasta que podamos tener la fisicalización de lo que es los objetos de los que está compuesta la nave y que realmente obtengamos los materiales basados en esa fisicalización. De lo que es las partes de la nave, ¿no? Que eso también pues entra pues en lo que es obviamente no lo están comentando aquí, pero eso tiene que ver con la fiscalización del daño, etcétera, ¿no?
Because it's just we like to wait until as many of the details are locked down as possible. True, the only constant game development is change, but we do try to make a threshold. At least get to a certain level of certainty before we.
Pero no, mientras no tengamos esta fiscalización de los componentes, pues utilizarán un mix de materiales determinados, diferentes a lo que es lo del hull scrapping.
Whenever possible.
Yes, but it's not a requisite, right? You can munch, but you lose some material or some profit.
It might be with a reclaimer. If you have enough things to munch, you're just going to skip on the stripping because you just have so much stuff to munch that it's maybe more lucrative. But if you have only one.
Claro, una de las cosas que se comenta es que de hecho si tenemos demasiado material que machacar, vamos a ir con una reclaimer y vamos a trillar todo y en ese proceso vamos a perder material que podíamos conseguir de hull scrapping. Es una decisión que tendremos que tomar sobre la marcha, ¿no? Pero que sí, se puede hacer munching sin necesidad de chatarrear todo lo que es la parte de fuera primero, ¿no?
This person clearly wants to cast a net over an area to see if they can pull in more things at once.
So, for now it is a single target beam, and the reasons are more complex as well because we are facing some like if we would allow the ownership of multiple items, that will get really complicated with physics and synchronizing those physics. So we decided for now that we will just go for one target per beam. But on the other side, we were talking about okay, how can we utilize the technology that we have with the tractor beam to affect multiple objects? So they were I think Dan brought it up at some point, these distortion fields or something like that, right?
Claro, están comentando el tema de la hora de recoger como un rayo tractor, de tener una especie de red para poder pillar varios objetos a la vez. Dice que ahora mismo solo tenemos
been prototyped yet. Right. So confirming anything at this point would be a bit premature. So
Claro, dice la idea es que están discutiendo sobre crear como una especie de campo de distorsión o algo así que pueda juntar varios objetos a la vez para poder tal, pero que dice Dan, de momento es algo muy primitivo, vamos a dejarlo por ahora así, vamos a ver hasta dónde conseguimos llegar con eso, ¿no? Pero que hay una idea de que con un radio tractor potente obviamente pues se pueden pillar varios objetos a la vez.
I think we answered that already, did we?
Yes, exactly. So the cargo elevator, the hangar cargo elevator is gonna offer this functionality. You'll be able to pull any item that you have in that station into that hangar through the cargo elevator, then put it wherever you want on your ship, equip it. And it also works the other way around, where you pull from your ship, put it on the cargo elevator, goes into the station. And one other thing you'll be able to pull with that is pull vehicles. So you'll be able to say, well, I want the ballista on my ship, and you pull it with a cargo elevator, comes on that cargo elevator, you drive it up into.
Claro, una de las cosas que están comentando, aparte de los elevadores de carga, los montacargas, es que si por ejemplo tú quieres sacar un vehículo, no solo objetos de las naves, de poder guardar objetos de las naves ahí para pasarlos al inventario de la estación, o sacar objetos de la estación para montarlos en la nave o ponerlos en la valla de carga, también seremos capaces de poder llamar vehículos.
Size and specialization of the tractor beam affect them.
Yes, there will be limits on the mass a tractor beam can carry that is defined by the tractor beam size as well as the volume. And we were even considering having exclusive tractor beams that they are specialized in handling cargo, and others are specialized in handling basically the detaching mode. So there are no clear decisions yet on how these exclusive.
El tema de los rayos tractores están teniendo discusiones acerca de de que va a haber especializaciones en los rayos tractores. Los rayos tractores tendrán diferentes tamaños, por lo tanto también podrán manejar diferentes masas y volúmenes, y habiendo incluso herramientas de rayo tractor para carga o herramientas de rayo tractor para lo que es el desanclaje de componentes.
A tiny gun like carrying several tons of weight is just like, yeah, it's fun, but not realistic.
As far as the stuff that you get through Salvage, are there plans to expand it to composites, glass, metals, any other materials?
We touched on that already with yes. So
Yeah,
once
okay.
the physicalized material comes in,
Right.
you will have all the different resources everything is made of.
Sorry, I'm clearly losing focus. I'm just stuck on munching and stripping right now. I can't get it. You mentioned a big part of the mining improvements in 319 was wanting to provide more use and viability for the Argo SRV with its multiple beams. This question's from Disco Lando. Can you do anything about the Rock DS?
You don't want an honest answer from me in this one.
Hold on. Dear John Crew, I effed up. Sorry. I'm just kidding. Let's see. We're almost at the end, folks. We're almost at the end. Can you tell?
But one thing I wanted to point out, it's not only the Argo Mole, right? So it's not only, we didn't focus only on the Argo Mole multi-crew mining, we also had Prospector multi-crew mining and even multiple Argo Mole mining in mind, right? So there are areas in Stanton where it is more, or where it's more viable to have multiple prospectors versus there are areas in Stanton where it's more viable to have the mole running your mining business. So no, we didn't forget about the solo miners, and no, we didn't forget about the solo miners that from time to time want to work in a group with other solo miners. So yeah, this is accounted for in our balancing up. It's not solely on buffing the mole, what I read.
Estaban hablando de si pueden hacer algo con respecto al Rock DS para darle un poco más de sentido. Como petición de Discolando dice que no puedo hablar mucho de esto, pero lo que pueden estar, lo que también comentan es que no solo se han centrado también, tienen pensamientos de lo que es el utilizar múltiples prospectors para poder hacer minería, sino también varias moles en conjunto para poder hacer minería.
Damage the cargo grid hull of ships at an alarming rate when loading, even at low speeds. What can be done to make this contact softer, less explosive?
It's an issue that we have to fix.
Yep. It's a bug. We're researching, we're working with the physics guys. We're looking into why the energy happens that it causes all this wreckage. There's also some problems that come between networking and physics because sometimes there's some synchronization issues, and yeah, we're investigating. We'll get the bottom of it.
Right. So
it's not intentional.
Okay, so fair. So it's not developing a new feature, changing the feature. It is figuring out what is causing them to hit the pad so hard. And
yeah, just a bug.
Okay. McGonagall says, will the Argo SRV tractor beam be capable of moving asteroids? For multiplayer mining ops, can we tug asteroids together for our party members in the Prospector/Mole?
So right now, how we originally designed mining, we just made all of our harvestables, which minables are part of, we made them static. And it was the simple thing to do back in those days. And I think now we're starting to get to the point where with tractor beam and all these features, there is a point in making it dynamic. So until now, and even right now, if you just crash into a fresh mineable with your ship, doesn't matter if you crash a Bengal carrier, that rock is not moving. But at this point, we can start looking into having them movable, and there's no reason if you can move. If you have a tractor beam strong enough to move a ship of that mass, of the same mass as the rock, there's no reason it couldn't move that rock. We've already saw some things happening when lootable boxes were tractor beamable. So we know there's some small problems there that we still need to overcome, but it is doable. So we're probably going to be heading in that direction.
I feel like, if I'm allowed to speak for you, I've known you and Torsten long enough to know that if there's a way to make towing asteroids around possible and relatively safe and not balance breaking, stuff like this, we'll probably pursue it.
Wait until they tow them at really ludicrous speeds and they crash them into stations. Just wait for that. That is the first thing everyone will do.
To see whether you can bring it with you into quantum, let it go. There's. I don't think it's a secret to say we want it. We want to see what happens, but game development.
We'll at least try it.
Okay, and then the last question from somebody whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce because it has a bunch of numbers in it. Is everything going to be a beam?
No. No, we were joking. So I think was it the last IC where you asked? Well, yes. We are aware of that we have a lot of beams in our game, but that doesn't mean that we want it, right? We also want to have like more variety in how like our gameplay are visually represented. That means that we are actively looking into finding like interesting ways of not utilizing beams for the stuff that we are working on. And
está comentando la posibilidad de largo SRV de poder remolcar asteroides o poder remolcar. Dice, ahora mismo si una Bengal se estampa contra un asteroide revienta, eso es así ahora, estamos viendo formas de poder cambiarlo. Y dices cuando pues me encantaría poder ver al final que le podamos llevar en Quantum y demás. Estaría guapo, la verdad, poder ir a buscar con Argos RV asteroides y llevárselos a una nave minera, ¿no? Y está preguntando, ¿todo en Star Citizen va a tener rayos tractores? Y dice, no. O sea, todo va a tener rayos, no rayos tractores, rayos. Y dice, no. Aparte de los láseres y los rayos, ¿no? Pues están pensando en hacer... tienen en cuenta en hacer las cosas de otra manera. También hay conversaciones para hacer las cosas de otra forma que no sea con eso.
People ask why are you putting trolleys in when we've got handheld tractor beams.
Está comentando, discando el ejemplo de los carritos y esas cosas, ¿no?
Bringing stuff up instead of, just dumping things into the hangar by beams. We're going to look for every opportunity to physicalize things whenever possible. Just maybe not in the very first iteration, because we want to get things into people's hands. Am I right? Am I wrong? I feel like I'm right.
Oh, yeah.
All right, just you don't even want to see my team's notifications right now. We're going to the bar after the show. That's it. Dan, Torsten, you've completed another successful episode of Star Citizen Live. How do you feel?
Well, good. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for watching, folks at home, folks at work, folks in your car. Captain Richard, you still watching your car? I don't know. Maybe just go out there just to feel comfortable. Join us next week. Next week's Inside Star Citizen is our first look at content for the upcoming Alpha 320. We're going to look at the new derelict outposts that are being added to the planets of Stanton. These are full-on villages in some cases, all new places for a variety of gameplay and missions and mission content and stuff. So you're not going to want to miss that. I'm especially fond of the one of the forest locations, which you saw earlier in the show during our intermission. And then we'll be right back here on Star Citizen Live for our improved new player introduction, where we'll have Todd Pappy on the show, and we're basically going to take you through the new player tutorial that's also coming online with Alpha 319. You might have seen the updated signage in ArcCorp and everything, and we're going to run through the whole thing with a developer commentary here with Todd and some others. So come on back for SCL for that next week. For Dan and for Torsten, I'm Jared. Take care. Be nice to each other. And I'm sorry for almost everything I've said this show. Bye.
Dice, lamento por casi todo lo que he dicho en este show. Vamos a tener el Inside Star City de la semana que viene. Nos van a hablar de la 3.20 y nos van a hablar de nuevos outposts que van a poner, que son como mini pueblos, que lo que vimos ahí en el intermedio fue uno de esos ejemplos. Y que nos van a hablar también en el Star Citizen Live. Va a venir Top Papi, que siempre que viene ese hombre sube el pan, sobre sobre la nueva para la experiencia para nuevos jugadores. Quiero mirar aquí una cosita porque nos han comentado algo. Un momentito que tengo que buscarlo porque...
I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah. If you had to pick munching or stripping.
Munching.
For the upcoming munching release.
Pardon?
Mime camera 2. I'm sorry. All right.
Vale, sí, ya está, chicos. Vale. Ok. For the upcoming Munching release. Nada, está pidiendo disculpas, descolando. Como que se le ha escapado el tema de que se viene el machacado más temprano que tarde. Creo, a ver. O creo que sí, espera, un momento. Un momento porque no... Yo creo que se refiere a otra cosa. A ver, igual... Vale, y aquí dice la otra cosa. Espérate un momento. A ver, aquí no sé si estaba actuando o hablando con Chris Roberts realmente, supongo que... Pero vamos, que todo parece indicar que sí, que efectivamente pues se viene el machacado más pronto que tarde de la chatarra. Tiene pinta, ¿no? Tiene pinta. En fin. Y es en plan que es algo que querían, supongo que querían como desvelar más adelante y se les ha ido un poco de las manos, ¿no? Sin más, o sea, tampoco es que sea el fin del universo, ¿no?